One of the things I'm hoping to do in 2026 is talk about other roles that you can get in the privacy space. Hello everybody, welcome back to Privacy Professional Training. My name is Fumi and I wanted to talk a bit today about getting your mindset right for taking your privacy exams in 2026. And I also wanted to talk a bit about what you can expect from the channel in 2026. So I really hope you all had a very nice holiday. For anybody that's brand new and this is your first video with me, my name is Fumi and I basically created Privacy Professional Training to help people taking their privacy certifications. I've taken a bunch of certifications over the last couple years and I do think it's really valuable to help students with their prep based on insights I've learned personally and resources I've used and created to help me pass my own tests. Today's video, given that it's a new year, I wanted us to talk about getting your mindset right for your privacy certifications. I've talked about this in other videos before about how I take one privacy certification a year. And one of the ways that I prep myself to be able to take certifications, in addition to balancing other responsibilities that I have, is I always make a plan in December. So if anybody hasn't made a plan in December about how their year is going to look, I always found it very useful to schedule out my year so that I know when it is that I'm planning to take the certification, because that prep is going to be very important and kind of sets a foundation in my mind about when I might have availability to take the certification. There's so much more that goes into taking a certification than meets the eye. Some people are able to wing it and just sit down one day in January and say, hey, I'm going to take the certification next weekend. But if you have other obligations such as myself, or you already work in the privacy space, or you're a student, you're probably going to have competing priorities. And one of the way I put my mindset right is I look at my year in December 2025. I basically mapped out all of the things that I have going on from a privacy perspective, work perspective, and I've already figured out which month I'm going to sit for my certification. So I already have in the back of my brain at least a rough timeline of when I'm planning to take a privacy certification in 2026. The other thing that I've done is I took a look at what I'm hoping to get out of my career and my work. In 2026, I looked at different market trends related to privacy, which you might find valuable as a professional. Maybe you're a student and this is your first time in the privacy space. I've always found it valuable to look at what's happening from a trend perspective. If you've been reading any of the news about data protection, you've seen that there is artificial intelligence that is taking over how businesses are creating systems and working from a productivity standpoint. So it may be that your decision to take a certification in the privacy space aligns with an artificial intelligence privacy certification or an artificial intelligence certification that's being offered by one of the certifying bodies. I saw recently that Osaka has an artificial intelligence certification now. So that was one of the considerations I looked at when I was preparing my mindset for the certification that I'm going to be taking in 2026. So I look at a different couple of factors. I look at industries that are heavily involved with artificial intelligence, industries that have been impacted a lot by privacy in 2025. There's so much that goes into it because you want to give yourself the best chance of securing whatever work it is that you do in the privacy space. And I've talked about in other videos about the different types of work that you can have as a privacy professional. I do have a particular video that talks about a privacy analyst. One of the things I'm hoping to do in 2026 is talk about other roles that you can get in the privacy space that may be of interest to you, or you currently work in that field and you're hoping to hone additional skills. The marketplace for privacy, there are privacy professionals already. Every industry there is competition. Even in the privacy space, there's competition. One of the reasons I personally took a bunch of privacy certifications is so that I could make sure that I was giving good advisory to clients. I really wanted to be able to understand my practice area very well. And so taking the privacy certifications helped me to feel confident about providing good advisory. So that might also be your position. Maybe it is your brand new to privacy. You want to get your mindset right because it's going to prepare you for going into that exam and winning. Now, whenever I take certifications, I always do an immense amount of prep. And I've talked a bit about some of the unofficial questions that I created going forward related to privacy professional training. But before I take any examination, I know that I am passing questions that I have taken between 70 to 80% of the questions I'm getting right. So you have to build up to the mindset. If you're like me, everybody everybody studies differently. And I think that's what's so valuable about having privacy professional training. I can only impart the way in which I take certifications onto students that might not have any knowledge about this industry or are looking to break into it. So I always find it valuable to set my mind, hey, this is the month I'm going to take the certification, because if you've watched any of my other videos, you know that I take between 2 to 3 months to study for a test, depending on the level of difficulty. Now, I've talked about taking security examinations as well, but essentially security overlaps with privacy, as does artificial intelligence. And if you're looking for insight into that, I have plenty of videos about why these all overlap. But essentially, I take a look at where I want my career to be headed, where I want the types of industries I want to work with, the types of organizations that I want to provide advisory to, and that does influence the privacy examination that I take. And I talked a little bit earlier about how artificial intelligence is being utilized by almost every single business at this point. So it's valuable to me to take artificial intelligence certifications in order for my knowledge in the industry to be kept up to date. That's another reason why it's really valuable to prep your mindset. It may be that you took a privacy certification 5 or 6 years ago. The privacy industry has continued to evolve. We can see in 2026 that there are a number of additional US state privacy legislation that are coming into effect, and those will impact your work as a privacy professional. So taking a privacy certification is going to keep you up to date and current on matters that are pertaining to the businesses that you provide your professional services to. Now, the other thing that I think is really valuable about setting your mindset is you may be thinking about creating a plan or a timeline or schedule. If you're like me, you have other priorities associated with the work you do. It may be that it's not just a priority, a work priority. You might have family obligations, etc., etc. You might have hobbies that you like to engage with. I think it's really important for you going into 2026 to set apart time to start thinking about what certification you might want to take, because it is a mental gymnastics when you think about having to spend your time reading books, taking past question papers, testing yourself over and over again before you actually sit for the test. My personal preference is to go into the test center. I always take the tests in person as opposed to taking them in my house, because I think it adds an additional layer of pressure onto me. So I like being able to start looking at different factors that influence how I take the test. And I've told you guys before, every privacy certification that I've taken, I've passed on the first instance. It's really important that if you want to succeed in a specific area, that you plan to win. Planning to win has always been something that's of great importance to me, because my time is very valuable, as I guess yours is as well. You don't want to be spending time retaking an examination that you could have planned to succeed in the first place. So that's one of the thoughts that I have before I take a certification. In addition to mindset, I think it's always really valuable. Maybe you have a notepad on your desk. I always have a notepad. I jot down ideas. So it may be that I'm doing a different activity, but if I get an idea about a certification that I'm planning to take, I will jot down a note and I will look into it as I'm leading up to that date of taking the test. And that also, I think that sets a little mental note in your brain. And it starts you thinking about the fact that you are going to take this test, you're going to take the test. That leads or influences the mindset that you go into, whether it is that you are someone that's able to study for the test in 2 weeks and pass it, or if you're someone like myself that it takes 2 or 3 months. It's really important for me to go over material over and over. I've talked about how I passed my other privacy certifications. I generally will read the official textbook at least 2 or 3 times, depending on the difficulty. If it's a security certification that I'm going to be taking, I will read the book. I will have a multitude of different books and resources that I'll utilize. If it's a privacy certification, I generally will read the book twice, depending on the subject matter. And this is why I think it's really important to take a look at the body of knowledge. And I will say something else from a mindset perspective. When I am looking at which privacy certification I'm going to take, I always take a look at the body of knowledge. It's a preliminary look. It's not something that I review in depth, make footnotes or anything like that. But I do think it's valuable to see what material might be upcoming, and I'll tell you why. A lot of these privacy certifications have overlapping modules. And when I say overlapping modules, I mean there are recurring themes in the privacy certifications that I can kind of gauge how long it's going to take me to study for. And that's something that you can do too if you are a habitual privacy certification taker like myself. If it's your first privacy certification, I still think it's valuable, particularly if you're coming from a different industry that is not in the data protection space currently, because there are a lot of themes that overlap with privacy, especially if you've dealt with personal data in any capacity. And I think it's very difficult to think of any industry industry that doesn't have some type of overlapping recurring themes with personal data, whether it's that you're in the compliance space right now, you're in the cybersecurity, you do human resources, there's loads of overlapping themes. And that's why I think it's valuable to look at the body of knowledge, even if it is that you're just prepping your mindset to know, hey, I've got a certification coming up this year, I need to pass it. Having those little things, doing those little actions is going to prep you from a mindset perspective, even if it is that you're going to be taking the certification later in the year. I did say I was going to mention a little bit about what you can see on my YouTube channel for privacy professional training in 2026. There's a couple of things I want to keep going over. I want to spend some time going in depth on privacy concepts, particularly privacy concepts that are going to influence all privacy certifications. I'm also planning to do deep dives into the privacy certifications that I'm going to take. And then you can also expect to see me plan and prep and pass my privacy certification for 2026. So I really hope you had a nice holiday and a happy new year.